Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode number 166 of the Peak of Serenity podcast. I am, as always, one of your hosts, Emerson, and joining me, we have my co-host, Anomaly.
Hello, hello.
And this week, it's a bit of a grab bag. We're going to catch up on stuff like the Mega Dungeon that we wanted to talk about last week and didn't quite have time to. There's also some Holy Paladin and Brewmaster nerfs. Um,
Mhm.
We'll talk about those. And then, Glorbo's here. So,
Glorbo is here in full force.
yeah. But before we get into that, how was Raid this week?
Raid, we are still in the throes of Starcraft progression, but Raid went really well actually. So we are now consistently seeing P3 and sort of
Nice.
slowly working through the dance in P3. So we've basically gotten through getting the three base or P3 pretty consistently and seeing the first or the second big circly thing. I don't know what it's
Yeah.
called.
Yep.
Where you
Cosmic
I guess
Ascension.
so we're getting doing the knockback, dropping all the group soaking the black hole, dropping the mountains over there, the little rocky things, and then getting back in, and then we're sort of wiping, doing that next move, which is like using the black hole to remove part of the second
Right.
clumping of rocks you have, plus doing bombs. Is sort of that is the portion we're dying at. So
Gotcha. Yeah.
um yeah, so we're it's been a ton of progress on Tuesday, and then Thursday. Tuesday was progressing in there, and then Thursday was pretty consistently getting there. But still, without our only evoker, had his power cut out, lost it for literally almost the entire raid on Thursday. So we had to bring in our raid leader, who typically sort of does the 21st man thing, and sort of subs in. So that was fun. So no evokers, so a little bit of damage lost there. And then what else happened? That was
Are
pretty
you guys
nuts.
playing an Augmentation Evoker, or is this a Devastation
Dev
Evoker?
devastation. Yeah,
Okay.
we had him swap between the two because we only have one evoker, our main evoker on roster, and he played Aug for the second half of Tuesday, and like literally zero DPS difference. Like classes did more damage, but like the loss of his damage didn't make up for the gain around other people. So like we
Yeah.
basically said, play whatever you find better. Like devastation probably ends up being
Yeah,
better. So
that's our evoker does not want to play Augmentation, and they're very good at Devastation, so they are staying Devastation.
yeah. It seems like if you have one, it's probably fine to leave them on dev. If you have two, you probably want one aug and one dev just to sort of spread it around. But in any event, I mean, progress seems well. I feel like there's a kill in our sort of our future this week. We just have to just clean up stupid deaths early, and then just sort of see the last. I think there's only probably like two or three mechanics that we really portions or parts of the fight we really care about after that. So but yeah, we'll see. How was Reclear on your side?
It actually has gone really, really well so far.
Oh,
I uh,
nice.
I put an ungodly amount of time into doing prep for Reclear. Just kind of like trying to front load a bunch of it so that it would all be ready for future weeks. And I feel like that really paid off because on Friday we got like we were on Magmarex before like we have a break halfway
Oh,
through
wow.
raid. We were
Yeah.
on Magmarex. And like Rashok had been a big point that I was concerned about. I watched other guilds that have been reclearing for a while, just like wipe multiple times on Forgotten Experiments and tank stuff, but we one shot it, you know,
Nice.
things like that. It's also, I don't know what it is. So I'm playing Brewmaster. Somebody in chat asked what I'm playing right now. I'm playing Brewmaster. I don't know what it is, whether it's me, getting more sleep or just like the Brewmaster rotation being more comfy for me right now. Like we're back on Blackout combo with Tiger Palm. This is like the OG. Like I spent 3 years in Legion playing basically this rotation. Um, it's different now, but you know everything stays the same in the end. Um,
Nice.
and I don't know. Like I just found it much easier to focus on stuff in like Forgotten Experiments, which was a big problem the first time we played
Yeah.
this. Rashok went well. Uh, Skarn, I don't think we one shot. I think we two shot it. It
Gotcha.
was.
How actually real quick, just on Rashok, how did the nerfs feel? Like, was it noticeable in terms of like the healing, or
I honestly couldn't tell you.
you couldn't tell you? Okay,
Like
fair enough.
it.
Fair enough.
our healing comp changed quite a bit, so I had to put a good bit of time into healing cooldowns as well. So
Yeah.
we have a priest that is now trialing with Incarnate,
Okay.
aka the guild that Jack is in.
Nice.
Um, and so we have no more priest, and our Mistweaver re-rolled the Preservation Evoker.
Interesting. Interesting.
So they're just like, I'm having way more fun playing Preservation Evoker in like alt raids and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, can I just play Preservation Evoker? And okay, sure, you can play Preservation Evoker. Uh,
Yeah.
they did, we got the really exciting huge value rewind on the very last Searing Slam.
Nice. Nice.
Just like literally a million HPS.
Yeah.
So yeah. It I honestly couldn't tell you the difference. We didn't feel like we were going to be losing people to uh the Searing Slam in the same way. However,
Yeah.
we also, the first time we killed it, we only had one warrior in, which was a mistake. It was a
Yeah.
mistake. And no DKs or anything like that. We had a paladin, so our DR cooldowns were Aura Mastery and Rallying Cry. That's
Yeah.
it. Uh,
Nice.
this time around, we had 2 rallies, Aura Mastery, and Anti Magic Zone.
So
So
you had plenty of stuff to cover late. Yeah.
literally 2 times as many DRs to cover the last phase. It just felt significantly better, and I don't know how much of that is actually the reduced damage, and how much of that is at a better comp for this time.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, and then we got to Neltharion, and Neltharion is just like, it actually was not really a weak aura problem that we ran into. It was more of a like, we had 4 or 5 people in that didn't hold the boss with us the first time.
Mm-hmm.
In any significant amount, and so they're learning how to like where all the positions are. Somebody spends 3 pulls getting spot number 3 on a certain heart set, and then suddenly they get heart number 1, and they have to go to a
Yeah.
completely different location. And it's just like learning, like, pro tip: you do not have time. If you go to the wrong spot, you do not have time to fix it.
You just eat it there. Yeah.
You just eat it there, which probably means you die, or the other person there dies, or both. But you just stay there, because at least then you can continue a pull instead of like bringing it back onto the raid and murdering a bunch of people.
Yeah.
But you do have time to like sit there and think for a second. It's just like, because the hearts are so big and you have to go so far away, that if you go to the wrong spot, now that's going to take longer to fix than it would have been to just do the like take time in the first place to like really think about it a little bit. So it's very different in some ways to some mechanics that we get, where a lot of mechanics are like react first and then fix it later kind of deals. This one is like, you sit there and you think about it for 2 seconds and then you go.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, I'm not excited to have to do reprogression on that boss. I'll say.
Yeah.
Of all of them. So.
Yeah.
Well, cool. It sounds like then you just have what, Neltharion and potentially
and
Sark. Well, not potentially, but Sark left. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. That's a decent first Reclear.
Yeah.
On a first night for first Reclear. Yeah, that's awesome.
So like, big thing is just want to get Neltharion down tonight. Like, if we get Sarkareth too, that's fantastic. But like, getting Neltharion down means we get skip progress, right?
That's true. Yeah.
That's the thing.
Nice. Well, I mean, good luck tonight, I guess, on getting those last 2 down, and then hopefully I have some better news next week. That's not just we're still wiping in P3. Well, cool. Let's talk a little bit maybe about some of the news this week. A couple of stories popped up. So we'll go through a couple of these quickly. So first up is Monte Krol. If you're not familiar, was the technical director. Was a technical director at Blizzard. He basically has worked on literally, I think, every game that Blizzard's produced since Warcraft 3. Yeah, since War 3. So he's been there 23 years. And has done a bunch of stuff. I mean, most notably, I guess, as a WoW podcast, like the Krol blade is named after him, which of course is the epic blade. I think it was from Blackwing Lair, if I remember correctly. Or no, it was just a random world drop.
Is
Sorry.
it just a world? Yeah, just
Yeah, well, just a world drop. So the Krol blade's named after him. He also does, which I didn't know this. He does did the time is money friend, which is one of the goblin voice lines.
oh
So yeah, Wowhead had it in the article. I didn't realize that was him. But yeah, it makes sense. I mean, a lot of those, I guess, early voice lines of like
which is people
NPCs
on
are
the
actually
team.
just Blizzard people. Yeah. So,
Yeah,
but yeah, he's literally been everywhere. I think he spent the most time, or he spent a bunch of time on StarCraft 2 building that engine in there. But like I said, he's basically put, I think, time into every game Blizzard released since War 3. So yeah, so sucks. Well, it kind of sucks that he's leaving. I think he leaves from a position in the Warcraft Arclight Rumble team officially. But yeah, Monte moving on after 23 years, which is, to be fair, extremely long time. I think to spend at any one company, regardless of industry, and I think in games, extremely rare.
yeah,
Um, to be at a studio for that long if you're not in some sort of like you don't own it or you didn't start it
yeah.
essentially. So, but yeah, sucks Monty's leaving. So, but yeah, we'll see what happens where it goes. Lots of old Blizzard guys starting studios, so we might see his name pop up somewhere else. Um, so next up is a story that I find absolutely hilarious. But it's about a new arrival to the World of Warcraft universe. It's Glorbo coming in, and it's just it's a terrible, terrible thing. But if you guys aren't familiar with Glorbo, or what this means is essentially a bunch of Redditors had noticed that a particular website called Z League had essentially been just scraping content through the use of some sort of like, or not use of some sort, but use of like AI sort of bots and things like that to basically scrape information from various different sources and then post them as articles on this website called Z League. And so what they ended up doing was hatching a plan to basically upvote a bunch of like posts and articles in the WoW subreddit about this Glorbo coming to World of Warcraft. And eventually zleague.gg, which is the website, posted an article about people being excited for Glorbo to be introduced into the game. Um, and so it's a little bit of a bait and switch, but it essentially highlights the fact that but some of these sort of news sites that are out there have absolutely scrape anything they can and post it as an article. I know that Wowhead is sometimes, we'll say, accused of doing similar things like this, but in
It's
general,
that
there's not in general. It's not this bad. It's not to this extent, and
like
this is like, yeah,
Wowhead does the like very I would say unfortunately common like someone made a Twitter post kind of
exactly.
articles, but at least those like there is a human involved, right? It's someone made a Twitter post, but at least it's an interesting Twitter post, and there's something there that is
Hmm.
interesting, even if it's just someone made a Twitter post. This is literally like no context, just like highly upvoted post,
Throw it in
ChatGPT an
there.
article. Uh,
Exactly.
I love this. I love that they got this quote in here though. Uh, I'm looking at the article on the Wayback Machine right now because they did take down this article from zleague.gg after
Yep.
they realized what had happened. But this quote that they took from Reddit verbatim is just so damning of the whole thing. And the quote is, "Honestly, this new feature makes me so happy." New feature referring to Glorbo. "I just really want some major bot operated news websites to publish an article about this." The
Which is
article goes
exactly
on.
what happened.
"This sentiment is echoed by many other players in the comments." It's
Oh
so
yeah.
funny.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, it's also a little alarming in that case. But yeah, it's just hilarious. I mean, I think they said like Wowhead did a bunch of stats in their article, but I think some of the other things that I find hilarious is the person credited with writing this article, just Lucy Reed is the name, which might not be a real person, published 83 articles the day the Glorbell article came out.
Right.
So like just on Z League, which is like absolutely crazy that you can write that much. And then I think the other thing is that like Z League has been averaging, because they just don't do WoW news, they do news across the gaming sort of sphere. They've been averaging 241 articles per day
Yeah.
over the past like 3 months, which is just
This is
crazy. It's a sort of, I think, maybe the bad part about like AI or ChatGPT and sort of like the idea of like AI is it it almost will start to generate just stupid like stupid information, but like essentially like trash information into the internet, right? When you get like articles like this
Yeah,
and like how it like no context stuff. So
this is spam. This is
yeah,
spam.
yeah,
Stuff like this is why Google is barely usable anymore, right? Like
yeah,
search engines are full of stuff like this. Like you search for
yeah,
things and it's just a bunch of automatically generated content. Um,
yeah,
it's really shitty, and it does actually. There is a larger thing where like because there's no context for these, they do take and reproduce. Like obviously, Glorbo here is fairly benign,
right,
but they do take things that are not benign and propagate them. You know, they will happily take stuff off of a highly upvoted, Reddit post that is, racist or sexist or anything like that, and just like doesn't matter, highly upvoted, make a ChatGPT news article out of it.
exactly, yeah, and then just yeah, spread that message or whatever
Yeah,
that idea even further, yeah. So
it's
it's an interesting new technology thing, right? Like it's the same idea of like when like you get like Twitter or even like even more recently like live streaming and the fact that like the idea that your entire life can be on video is like just
yeah,
I don't know. Technology is weird sometimes, and that like the technology part of it's super cool. The use of it maybe not as cool, right? Like maybe it has a
right,
little bit more of like a like pitfalls and stuff like that to it. So,
yeah,
but no, yeah. So Glorbo, not honestly a real thing. If you've seen some stuff about that, that's what it is. I saw there was another Reddit post that popped up about how to speak. I think it was Nerubian in game, and it was this guy who like essentially wrote a step-by-step guide for how to speak Nerubian, and a bunch of people commenting like, "Oh man, this works," or "Oh man, you could have used this item," and they're like, "Well, it's only like for a limited time." So I think they're still trying to catch old Z League in some interesting like yeah bot articles. So
yeah,
um, but cool. Maybe in maybe more fun news, a little happier times is Raider.io is acquiring Keystone.Guru for their auto generated routes functionality. So if you weren't familiar, I mean, you should be familiar with Raider.io, but if you weren't familiar with Keystone.Guru, basically it was a online website to basically create and then share out Mythic Plus routes. And so I think Keystone Guru had been working with Raider.io on a lot of their like the weekly routes. So like every week,
right,
Raider would put out routes for every dungeon and even I think some of the analysis on some of the top run routes they were also working on that. But now they've basically been sort of acquired by Raider.io, and they're coming out with what are they calling it? It's like auto route creator,
yeah.
where the idea is they will auto create routes, which is really interesting.
Did you see the JB tweet about this?
No,
I
I
wish
didn't.
I could find it. Hang on. Let's see, twitter.com/j. Uh,
I didn't realize JB had a take on this.
uh, I'm gonna pull this up. Sources say this new tool is being referred to internally as the Deep Learning Route Automator tool for newbies online service. Weird name, but I'm sure they have
Goodness.
their reasons.
so
And for those that maybe couldn't follow from the audio, it's an acronym for Tratnos.
who used to do the weekly route?
Yeah.
I guess like that was BFA time or even before. I
He
think.
did it for years. He did it in
Yeah, I did
Legion
it for a
and
lot. Really.
BFA. Like he did it for a long time.
Yeah, I used many of his routes when I was tanking in Legion
Yeah.
for Mythic Plus. So but yeah, so this is a cool little acquisition. I mean, Keystone.Guru I think was I don't do much Mythic Plus, but it seemed like a really cool tool. And the idea of having auto generated routes is just helpful for the community in general that might not know the best way to go through a dungeon. So
Yeah.
good on Raider.io. Love to see consolidation in the industry, right? Right? Emerson, love to see when
Love to
tools
see
just
it.
come together.
There's also in shameless plug because I work there. Um, there is actually a view route feature on Warcraft logs for dungeon logs. Um, but you can't like export to MDT or anything like that. And as with many useful Warcraft logs features, it is fairly hidden away.
Yeah. Actually, that reminds. I don't know if you can say this or if you know this, but have you guys seen like an increased amount of key logging traffic? Like, well, logging of keys, I guess I should
Right.
say.
Yeah.
trying,
Gotta
trying to
love.
phrase that in a way
Yeah.
that I'm not trying to say anything. But yeah, like of Mythic Plus dungeon runs being uploaded. Have you seen like an increase in those at all, or can you even say? I don't know.
I can't say, and it's not
Okay.
because I can't say. It's because, well, I mean, it's not because I like not allowed to say. It's because I actually have
Yeah.
no idea.
Okay.
I have
Yeah.
not looked.
I would just be interested if like the rise of augmentation, which we'll talk about, I think in a minute here, has like affected like more runs being uploaded. Because I know that like for me personally, like when I play augmentation, I do actually log my keys and upload them, which is something
Yeah,
I don't do
that's actually
otherwise. So
I had pulled up a log from this week that we did, and I don't normally log my keys either unless they're just
Mm.
incidentally logged because I have it on
You
after
had it on
raid.
for like raid or whatever. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Um, but we had people that wanted to see the augmentation damage, the actual augmentation damage, so I uploaded it after, and that's the only reason I have those. So at least in my case, I same thing, like because of augmentation, uploaded logs.
Gotcha.
Um, yeah, it's gonna be very interesting. Like, not to get too far off topic, it's gonna be very interesting couple of months while the whole community kind of like figures out how to deal with augmentation.
Yeah, yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Well, I mean, speaking of having to deal with augmentation, we talked a little bit last week about what was it, the 22 augmentation evoker run that Bicep Pumps put together, where they were, killing bosses in heroic Aberrus in like 20 seconds, 30 seconds. Well, Blizzard had come out and made a couple of changes. The biggest being that a single player can only benefit from a maximum of 4 uh, of the external buffs that Evokers does, which includes Ebon Might, Prescience, and Shifting Sand. So essentially, the idea is that you can no longer infinitely stack, say, Ebon Might on a player. You can only do up to 4, which, to be fair, is probably a fair number. Like, if you don't want to hard
It's
stack
one per
evokers
raid
beyond
group.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What that actually does kind of mean as well is that if you're looking at like Mythic for next tier, you can't just take the best DPS class and then only bring evokers basically to buff,
Hmm.
right? Or take the best burst DPS class and bring evokers, them, you know, shotgun the boss. Um, the other really major part of this is Breath of Aeons can no longer proc Fate Mirror, and those are just like word salad mumbo jumbo for most people. But what we talked about last week with the bicep pumps run is that they were having all of their evokers fire off Breath of Aeons. Breath of Aeons, it turns out, already had code in place to prevent it from benefiting from other Breath of Aeons.
Hmm.
But it could trigger Fate Mirror, and Breath of Aeons could benefit from Fate Mirror. So what you would end up with is like Breath of Aeons from Evoker A triggers Fate Mirror, that then Breath of Aeons from Evoker B copies and multiplies further. And so that was generating the other piece of really busted damage amounts.
Exactly. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
did.
So I'm
Uh,
sorry.
Sorry, just one more brief thing about augmentation. Uh, Shortly after our podcast last week, when there was a Wowhead article where one of the augmentation theory crafters actually broke down what was going on with that run. And it turns out Breath of Aeons wasn't even the most busted part. So I did link that in the show notes for last week's episode. But just to like go back there, the Breath of Aeons thing is not the only thing that was going on. That's just, really strong.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, it was an interesting set of, or not interesting, but it was I would say a solid set of just changes in general. I think it just, limiting the need to stack a single class, I think, is always a good thing. They went further, by the way, with some of these nerfs coming up, which will go live this coming Tuesday, on the 27th, which is a couple of additional sort of buffs, or not buffs but changes, we'll say, to evoker buffs and nerfs. So some of like the buffs, such as closest clutch mates, which basically makes Ebon Might and Breath of Aeons more effective when you're not in a raid group. That bonus got reduced from 40% to 20%. There's a couple other changes like eruption damage has been increased, so the evoker will do more individual damage now versus relying on their party or their buffs to their party to do a bunch of the damage. Um, and then a reduction in black attunement, which reduces the overall health provided by or sorry, reduces the health black attunement provides from 7 or from 10 and 16 to 7 and 10. And then I think Fate Beer has its chance to occur reduced. So handful of, we'll say, tuning changes to Evoker to buff their own individual damage, but reduce their contribution to the group.
The big thing here is the closest clutch mates change.
Yeah.
The idea there is that you go from buffing 4 DPS to buffing 2 DPS, and so you get a compensation. They just, forgot that tanks and healers exist, and that tanks also scale off of primary stat, and that ended up being really powerful.
Yeah.
Basically. Especially when you have a spec like Brewmaster that can compete with DPS specs on overall damage. Dungeon.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's a bit of a, we'll say a bit of a reduction in their overall power, but I'd still say, I mean, if we haven't really brought up the Great Push, I don't think it's on our notes, but the Great Push is going on this weekend, and that is literally Augmentation Evoker is a lock in every comp for every dungeon.
They were actually running literally the same comp in every Guardian.
Yeah, it was
Holy Paladin, Augmentation Evoker, Fire Mage, and Shadow Priest.
Yeah, so this by no means reduces the overall. I'd say Augmentation is still very good, and I think Augmentation is going to run probably very similar to, if you guys remember, like the Legion Disc Priest, that big rework on Legion, where essentially Disc and Augmentation, or old Disc and Augmentation, suffer from the fact that, like, to make the class playable by normal people, we'll say, it has to be easy and good, but that also means that at the extreme, like top end, it is essentially busted.
Yeah.
Right. Like if you don't, if you guys didn't play back then, but like old Disc, Legion Disc could literally solo heal some encounters by like really only by the very best players. And then as you got lower in skill, or just lower, yeah, I guess skill is the right word to say, they became just more normal healers, or say more mortal. But yeah, very high ceiling, and like to get the general population to play it, it has to have some level of ability to be played at a lower level.
Accessibility. It's funny. Slightly different game, but in Overwatch, when Brigitte came out, same deal. They were a support, and they were busted as fuck. They were very accessible, but then in the hands of actually in the hands of basically anybody, they were busted as hell. They got nerfed, and then still were in the hands of like a really skilled player, just completely broken.
Yeah. That's fun. Yeah. So that's sort of the balance with, I think, of Augmentation Evoker right now, is sort of trying to hit that sweet point. And then, sorry, one other thing before I think we go into monk changes, if that's okay. We talked a little bit last week about the Echoing Tearstone nerf, which is the trinket from the new dungeon, the 5-man dungeon. So the team, or not, we'll say the team, Volk and his that group did the final theory crafting on that. Once they saw the trinket online, were able to test it. Actually was a larger nerf than we thought it was. So it sort of moves it, at least from a monk perspective, mystery perspective, sort of out of your top 4 trinkets. So I mean, if you already had, I mean, Rashok still hands down best trinket you can get your hands on. And then the class trinket from Neltharion, still number 2, solidly number 2. And then Tearstone sort of fits in like the 3, 4, 5. Those type of trinkets are all fairly similar. With like the other trinket actually from the new dungeon, I think it's Time Thief's Gambit being decent now, being on par with Echoing Tearstone. So no longer really a chase item if you're looking for the best of the best, but still a fairly solid trinket in the top 5. Yeah. So
speaking of trinkets from that dungeon, it still does have the only cheat death trinket the entire expansion has given us. So if you want one of those for Prog next tier, or for Prog this tier, that's the only place you can get it still. Have fun.
Nice. And then we did see so there were announced some hot fixes for monks coming in this upcoming Tuesday, the 27th. So we've got, I'll go over the Windwalker ones quickly. Windwalker just getting some flat damage increases across the board. increases to Tiger Palm, Blackout Kick, Fist of Fury, and Rising Sun Kick, as we are sort of been known to see across the board. We'll continue to probably see a slow trickle of buffs to Windwalker as they do not scale with stats and need Blizzard to artificially scale them, which is always fun.
There, the only one of these worth noting that is AoE. I guess Blackout Kick is kind of AoE with I don't know what it's called now. It makes it hit 2 extra targets. Fist of Fury is also AoE, but Rising Sun Kick and Tiger Palm are purely single target. And so this is, I believe, the numbers I saw Babs posting in Guild Discord were 6%, 5 to 6% single target gain, which is, you know, thumbs up for Windwalkers.
Do more damage, still sit on the bench. Lovely.
There are,
I shouldn't disparage them.
I think there's yeah. There's also a slate of tank changes, all tank damage changes. Warriors get 7%, Protection Paladins get 8%, Death Knights get 10%. I was wrong. Guardian Druids got nerfed. Their Ursac's Fury shield got nerfed. But like, damage boosts across the board for tanks, except for Brewmaster. You can thank Brackenhide Hollow for this nerf. Damage of Spinning Crane Kick reduced by 20%. Damage of Keg Smash reduced by 5%. This is one of those things where like the Keg Smash nerf is actually relevant. Spinning Crane Kick nerf is kind of bait. It's, you know, the most effective way for you to pad on damage in a key is to sit there spamming Spinning Crane Kick. On high target count AoE, like the Lashers in Brackenhide Hollow. It is, like, not to be, you know, completely hyperbolic, it is an actual nerf. This is not really, like, gonna be a big deal.
Yeah.
Honestly, the Keg Smash one is kind of awkward because Keg Smash is already a button that we only... It's so weird. Okay, sorry, small tangent. We went from like Breath of Fire being just a button that we never wanted unless we absolutely had to for other reasons, to, and like Keg Smash being like the button to push, to now it's like Keg Smash we only push as a means to reset the cooldown on Breath of Fire, basically. And we only push Breath of Fire in order to turn on buffs, unless like there's a different talent you can take that makes it worth pushing, but that talent build is no longer as good as, you know, getting your buff, your Charred Passions buff from Breath of Fire. And so all of our damage now on single target and raid is primarily focused into Blackout Kick and Tiger.
Gotcha.
It's just,
interesting.
It's just very funny how it's all like shifted around.
Of a couple minor change or a couple changes in the way it works. That's funny. Yeah, I think that's all. Oh, I guess I mean I had on here that just the paladin changes, but we don't. I mean, Holy Paladin got healing and damage decreases going into this week, so these were already live for this raid week. So 8% healing reduction, 12% damage reduction, and then Tears Deliverance healing has been decreased by 15%. The only anecdotal, so having not played Paladin since I guess Sire, that would have been the last time I played it in Shadowlands. The only thing I know is from our Holy Paladin, our guild hates Tears Deliverance.
Really?
In that, like, just that I think his point is like they're so reliant on it right now. It's sort of annoying to play around.
Okay.
But yeah, other than that, it seems like this was probably warranted. Although it hasn't changed like the great push meta or anything like that. So
yeah,
Paladin's still crushing damage at this point. So.
Our Holy Paladin is like huge fan, not necessarily of Tears Deliverance. I don't know about that specifically, but of the new iteration on Holy Paladin. They were like, so before the change, Holy Shock was number 6 or 7 on their priority of spells to push to heal people with. And that felt really wrong and weird, and nobody in the raid could triage anybody because all of the triage spells were bad. And now Holy Paladin can do triage, and Holy Shock is an important button for doing that. So they're like, it feels more like it should.
Nice. But cool. I think that's it for weekend review stuff. So I had a couple of topics for this week, 3 to be exact. So I think the first one, probably a quick one, but the ping system coming in 10.1.7. So we can get a chance to talk about this last week. But I am super, well, personally very excited about this. So what Blizzard's doing is they're adding in essentially a ping system into the game. Very much similar if you've played any sort of like battle royale type game or a battle royale. Or I mean, to be fair, a lot of games have this now where you essentially point your cursor at something and you can ping it and like it'll alert your teammates to something going on. So in battle royales, it's good to like ping out enemy positions or movement. Hey, we're going to move there. So WoW has sort of added in this system to basically ping in a couple different aspects. I think it's like assist, attack, on my way, or warning. You can ping one of those sort of ideas, immediately shows in the game world on the terrain, and then your teammates or your group will also see that same ping. And so I think this is a good addition, something that probably needed for a while. And I think honestly it's going to help in those sort of I think this in conjunction with what are they calling it? The private auras? Is that what it is? Whatever the hidden auras are part is, like the hearts on a Neltharion, right? Or no, yeah. Help with sort of dealing with mechanics like that in like a PvE environment. Basically be able to like quickly say, I'm moving here, and then like people will give you space, right? Versus having to like I mean, I guess the other way you do it is like world markers, but that's so slow of like going into
It's
like the raid menu and then like clicking. So
it's
yeah,
it's also like even if you keybind them, right? They're still
yeah,
global. Only one square marker can be out at a time, and all that stuff. Um,
yeah.
it's just
And they're
awkward.
permanent too. I guess that's the other option.
Yeah,
The other idea is like, yeah, they permanently say that where pings sort of drop for a couple seconds, then disappear. So
yeah. So this actually, like looking at our Reclear on Friday, this actually would have been really nice for Skarn. Be able to like
oh yeah,
ping like, hey, can you clear this trap? Right.
yeah,
We have actually all 8 world markers out as reference points on that we do use. Like, can you clear the traps next to X? Can you clear the traps next to square? But like being able to ping a specific trap, or like I could move Skull there right now, but Skull is actually very difficult to see as a world marker on a lot
yeah,
of fights. So
yeah. No, I'm really excited. I actually loaded up PTR just to sort of ping things. And so it's a really intuitive system. The keybind stinks because I think it defaults to G, and like I have spells bound to G, so I have to
yeah, me too.
find another
Actually,
keybind to this. But in general, it's a really cool new system. So I'm excited to see like how people end up using it. I think it'll print to chat too, so you'll be able to see like who pinged what. Um, and there is you can't like spam ping, so like at most I think you can just like you'll end up with someone being an idiot in some sort of like instance grouped content like once, and then that's enough. So
yeah.
but yeah, pings are coming. Probably a couple years overdue, but a cool 10.1.7 feature. Hopefully it makes it in there. So now for I think the big or one of the two big topics we had. The new dungeon.
Yep.
So the new mega dungeon was released with the patch this week. I have actually done it. I don't know if you had a chance to do it yet.
Yep. I've done it a couple times. No trinket yet.
Nice, unfortunate. How are you liking it?
Morky
How's it
sucks.
going?
Morky sucks. That
I
boss is
would
terrible.
yes, agreed.
Everything else is, I would say, pretty good. Like, standout bosses that I thought were really interesting and like different and fun. Iridicron. That's a boss that
Yes.
like that's a really good boss. It feels really different, and also I really like the combined group soak plus tank mechanic on that is neat, and I like it. Um, then there's to a lesser extent, Chronolord Deus is like very
Okay.
different from like most raid encounters. I've seen some people try to tank that and do very strange things. It's pro tip for Chronolord Deus if you're tanking this boss, okay? And it's always the end of the fight that people get really messed up on. After spoilers, he tries to corrupt Nozoru. Um, go to the wall and move around the room.
I'll
Pick
give
a
it a while. Yeah.
direction, clockwise, counterclockwise, does not matter. Pick one and just move around the room on the outside. It's not super complicated. You do everybody except the tank needs to be behind the boss. Tank's in front of the boss, and every time he does the thing that puts the swirlies on the ground, you move forward out of the swirlies, and there's always space.
Always. Yeah.
Yeah. So, um, that's how you do that boss. It is a good boss though. I like that boss. There are a
Yeah.
lot of bosses in there.
Yeah, 8. I mean, I would agree that Morky is the one boss that I disliked, I think, the most. So I actually pugged it my first time in. So it was sort of
Ooh.
the pure, like, not guild group. Took about an hour and a half actually. So not too terribly long for like a bunch, like none of us had done it before. And so yeah, I would say Morky's not that much fun. Tier was interesting in
Oh, I
that,
like tier 2.
yeah, and my only problem with tier is, so we actually almost wiped, basically everyone died, but the DH and then our tank, with about 15% left on tier, and and then the DH died. I think the next circle things to the middle, but the tank was able to solo the last 5%. It was a paladin, protection paladin. So I don't know if it's like the center orbs don't do enough, like there's not enough punishment for missing them, or
I'm not
what
gonna
ended up being,
lie,
but
I don't know what the center order.
neither do I. Like, I just knew you had to soak them. Like, I literally was like, as I'm in the
uh,
dungeon, I'm like watching Jack's video on the side monitor about his overview of it, and then I'm like, okay, this boss soak, so that's what I did. But I mean, tears just,
so
I don't
the
know.
balls, I do know if you soak them, you get a damage buff, and
Yeah, it's like, hey, yeah,
I don't know if it's supposed to be that like that's the only thing, like it's just the damage buff, or if there's supposed to be something else that you like need to. I don't know,
yeah.
but
I should
you
probably
know,
read about it.
yeah, maybe that's something next time I'll read the dungeon journal.
Yeah, I
Um,
will. I will say too, the dungeon in general was very. I got confused because you as you progress through the dungeon, you actually re-walk back through other areas you've previously
yep.
like done, because you're sort of like, I guess, like riding the time wave, so you'll see like different areas in different time or whatever. Um so like I got 100% lost after one wipe, actually, before Moki, whatever that boss's name is,
Yep.
because like I, number one, didn't know what portal to go into when it splits like that, and then number
Yes.
two was like, I was like confused walking. Like I took a portal and ended up in a place I didn't realize, and then when I tried to backtrack, it put me in a different part of the dungeon. So I screwed something up. So yeah, other than that, I think, other than like navigation of the dungeon, and then you can't use, I guess the other part is you can't use the map because it's all like subzones. So like when you back out of the map one level, it's just like a illustrative picture of like the zone. It's
Yeah.
not like the real like
Right.
coordinates. So
Yeah,
um
that's true. That's definitely a bit of a pain point.
yeah, but if you're just going through, it's fine. I will say the gauntlet was probably my favorite thing. So after tier, there's the gauntlet before you get to like where it splits between Moki and the, I don't even know what the other boss does. It's like the
it-
gauntlet.
the
It's
it's the
Alliance versus Horde
yeah, the Alliance
boss.
versus
Yeah.
Horde boss. It reminds me of not the Oculus, what's the other one? The Nexus, the one in the basement in
Okay.
Wrath, where you go and there's the frozen dudes down there. Fight them.
Oh yeah. I
It
know. Yeah.
reminded me of that. It's just like that. It's very similar, and now there's an even larger thing to beat you up. It's
Yeah.
just that boss though with a even bigger dude.
That's fair. Yeah. But yeah, the gauntlet was fun going through it. I didn't take the portal. I like made it a point to make it through, to much to my group's chagrin, because somebody had made it through and opened up the portal before
Yeah.
I had finished. I was like, "Nah, give me at least two more tries and then we'll do it." So,
Yeah, the
um,
I will say that I found the gauntlet very frustrating because of how finicky specifically the frontal cones were in
yes,
terms of their hitboxes. Sometimes you would like not be in them, like way out of them, and it would, count you as in them. And
yeah.
then sometimes you would be in them, but you would be at the, oh, this is actually the hitboxes for them where they fade out at the end actually doesn't hit you apparently.
Oh, really? Okay.
It's actually like I wonder if they intended to that be like for that to be a little bit of like forgivingness to the mechanic, but they didn't consider the fact that you're going to try and run through them sideways.
Right. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it just like those things, they just were not super like, it was just a crap shot as to whether like you were either really clearly like miles and miles away and you were fine, and if you were not miles and miles away when it went off, then like good luck. You might get hit, you might not.
Yeah. I will say, in probably a coordinated group, you could have done this a little better. I know in mine, like uncoordinated, like the other problem was like people running ahead of you. would like trigger things as you were getting to them, and you couldn't stop because behind you was
Yeah.
like
That's the other
the
thing
front
too.
loading you and the other person they'd already targeted. So yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
The other thing is it's actually okay to just stop in the middle of this thing. Like you have the
yeah.
huge movement speed buff, but you don't have to keep moving. And so that's actually one of the things that made it much easier for me to get through the thing is that sometimes like somebody like you said triggers the frontal cone in front of you and you can actually just like sit there. Just stop in front
And
of it.
wait. Yeah.
Wait for it to go off and then go through and be perfectly fine.
Yeah.
It's kind of tight because then the dudes that shoot balls
It's to
turn
dodge those.
and start shooting those at you. So like you don't have a ton of time, but you can stop and wait for the mechanic to go off and then go forward. The other thing I found about it, the door opens, but you can't actually go through it for a
Oh,
while. The dudes at
oh
the
yeah.
front will just shoot you immediately. Not like shoot a ball at you, just shoot you and send you out immediately until the
Oh
RP
really?
finishes.
I didn't realize that. Yeah, I mean, I didn't get there first, so like the RP probably had already finished, but yeah,
Well, no, like
interesting.
at the very start of it, like when you're trying to enter the gauntlet.
Oh,
Like
okay.
the door goes down,
Yeah,
and like this happened this week. I was just like trying to get going in the gauntlet, like just get
yeah.
moving, and I'm just like, hello, hello. I'm getting ported back to the start over and over again by these dudes, and
Yeah,
it just like until the RP finishes playing, like the door goes down, but you can't actually start the gauntlet. It's very like odd.
that is
Normally,
so
when the
annoying.
door opens, you can go.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, but I mean, I'd say like in terms of dungeons, like if we look at the other mega dungeons that have come out, like Mechagon, and then what was the one last raid? I should know this.
Tazavesh.
Tazavesh. I think I like this better than Tazavesh, but I don't. I think Mechagon to me is still the best mega dungeon. Well, modern mega dungeon they
There's
made.
also
I think.
Karazhan.
Yeah, I mean Karazhan is like, but to me Karazhan's a 10-man raid. Like it's not a mega dungeon. That's
Okay.
the problem. Is like in my lore, Karazhan's just like a remake of a 10-man. But no, I mean I think Karazhan would probably take the cake in terms of like actual like if we're talking about 5-man dungeons in the game
Yeah.
for me at least.
Like my current kind of opinion is that Morky aside, the bosses in this dungeon are probably the best of any of the mega dungeons on the whole. Like even Morky being in there doesn't make up or doesn't drag it down far enough. I think because other dungeons also have their kind of ass
That's fair.
bosses.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
And to be fair,
uh,
Mechagon mechanics are not that advanced. Like those bosses are fairly simple in terms of like what you're
right.
doing in each of them. So
Yeah.
yeah, there's actual mechanics in this one. So
Um, then I think that in terms of like the actual trash mechanics and stuff, Mechagon probably the best.
yeah, there's enough variety there.
Yeah. And then in terms of like the overall like dungeon layout and like creative pathing and just like screwing around and trying different things, Karazhan is like
Yeah,
is just like the way people were doing Karazhan lore in Legion like changed 4 or 5 times over the course of the expansion. And then when we went back for Karazhan lore in season 4, it was just completely different.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah,
um, you still don't do the spiders. Spiders are banned, but it was just different. And there's just so many different ways you can go through that dungeon.
yeah,
Um, the and that's not like Hazavesh is good. It's just not the strongest on any singular category.
yeah. I mean, yeah, it wasn't. I would agree. Tazavesh not bad, but yeah, not. There's no highlights from Tazavesh. It's like
Last
if
boss was
anything.
awesome. Last boss of Hazavesh was awesome.
Okay, yeah, but then you had to deal with what the fourth boss, the last boss of like the first section of Tazavesh, which I
Oh, I
contend
like
is
that
one of
boss.
the wall. No, the wall boss, absolutely horrid, horrid of a
I like
boss.
that boss.
No, it's doing that day one and like having it like randomly start casting and then or like the little ports you have to take, like not just putting you in a position where you're eating a wall anyway. It's just yeah, not a fan. But
Yeah. All right. All right. Um,
But yeah, no, the new one I would say like definitely up there in terms of, I think aesthetically too, I think it's pretty good. I think it's
yeah,
a cool mix of like different time stuff and like different like environments. So
yeah, it's
it's
like
another solid job.
thinking back through like Tazavesh, it's like a lot of the bosses in there have a gimmick. They're like 2/3 of
Yeah.
the bosses in that dungeon are gimmick boss. You have the music boss,
Yeah.
very literally a gimmick boss. You have the auction boss, right? The gauntlet
Yeah.
boss. That again, like the gimmick is that you use the thing from the one boss that just sticks around forever to just like soak up all the orbs from the second boss, and then the third boss just kind of exists.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
and then of course the wall boss that we already talked about has a very significant gimmick. I think it's a cool boss. I think it's a fun boss, but it is very much a gimmick boss. There's not a lot of these bosses have this like fundamental, like this is why we play the game kind of
Yeah.
mechanics and challenges and things like that, versus something like Tier that feels more like just a scaled down raid boss.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd agree. Yeah. Yeah.
Or
So I think they
Eridicron.
did.
Eridicron
Yeah.
again, stand
Ridicron.
on.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was really, it was fun. Like we, quote unquote, I had to progress that boss because we wiped probably like about 10 times to it in this pub group, which funnily enough stuck together, which I thought was crazy.
That's cool.
But yeah, no, it was fun to sort of go through that with them and like figure out damage, like where we needed it and stuff like that. So, um, but you know, I think new dungeon good. I mean, definitely check it out, and I think it's more than likely will be in the Mythic Plus pool starting next patch, season 2 or season 3. I guess it's now season 3. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, for the new one. And so I know we only have about 5 more minutes in the podcast, but I did want to bring up one quick thing just because we didn't get a chance to talk about this last week. But Jack, shout out Jack the Priest, of course, Automatic Jack of priestly fame, put out a video a couple weeks ago, or probably about a week ago now, basically bring up the topic of should 10-man Mythic replace 20-man Mythic. And so it's sort of a lengthy video talking about like the most fun, or not the most fun, but a time he really enjoyed was doing like 10 mans in MOP where there was sort of hard modes that rivaled 25 man at that time or whatever. And it's funny because I would agree with him in that like I rated 10 man in Mists of Pandaria 2. Honestly, was a huge amount of fun. We had like 11 people on roster.
Yeah.
Everybody knew each other. It was really close. It was fun. But I disagree because like I think there are too many classes in WoW for a 10-man group to exist without a lot of classes just playing very similarly or being very samey in terms of what they bring.
They could do it in terms of like you think about like AMZ and Rally are very different in terms of feel, but they perform a similar function. They are both like 20% DR. One
Yeah.
of them doesn't work on magic or on physical damage, and the other one has a chance to kill you when it expires.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so there's definitely overlap in some abilities, but I think by and large, like my opinion of this is that there are just there's too many classes, too many like buffs, like just too many things that are spread across multiple classes that like your 10-man raid group essentially ends up being maybe like 8 required classes and you have wiggle room of 2. The other
Yeah.
problem I think a 10-man sort of brings up is like the over prevalence of tanks at that point. Where like you basically still need 2 tanks for that 10-man raid and you need 2 tanks for your 20-man raids that we have today. So
Yeah.
lowering the size doesn't sort of, doubles the amount of quote unquote percentage
Tanks
of spots a
that you
tank
need.
takes up.
It
Yeah.
it is something that I think could be fine if they were okay with having 1.5 tanks. And
Yeah.
what I mean by that is like we had on an amalgamation chamber this week. We messed up the first tank combo in second phase. I got one shot. Um, and then we had a rep paladin taunt, the tank mechanic and do that. And if they were okay with like that being an actual way to do bosses, is just like one tank plus a tanky DPS that takes a tank
Yeah.
mechanic in order to spread out debuffs or whatever. Um, then I think it could be fine because then you have like a main tank and a second person that's like your designated off tank that will play a tank spec on bosses that need 2 tanks, but then on a bunch of bosses they just play DPS.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I mean I think in my mind there's probably you'd have to change a lot of like the way classes plays and even some of like the upgrade and like gearing systems around it to like make I think 10 man mythic the replacement for 20 man. So
I think
20 man,
the
I think what?
I think the elephant in the room though is just what it would do to existing stable 20-man teams.
Yeah, I mean, well, if you think about it though, like that, this was the same conversation that happened. I guess the problem is 20 man mythic has been around. I think at this point longer than 40 man raids and 25 man raids. So like we've
Yes.
already gone through those sort of reductions, and like the funny thing is going from like 40 to 25 at the time was over an expansion. And like I know that my guild, I've been going through it with my guild. We were like really nervous, but like what ended up happening is like a bunch of people quit, and so like we actually had to recruit people to keep our 25 man group going. And like the same thing going from 25 to 20 from a mythic perspective in guild is like you basically lose people anyway to turnover across expansions, and then you end up having to recruit. And I think 20 is
Yeah.
about the lowest I would go. And in terms of WoW, like it's funny, like I always look back at like some of the other games I played and raid in. Like, I mean, I know Final Fantasy is what, 8 people
Yeah.
in a raid, and like Destiny 2 is 6 people. But I think those games are just different in well, I don't know about Final Fantasy because I haven't played a ton of it, but I know for Destiny, like classes there are super simplistic, play very much the same. So like any 6 people who show up, you can raid. There's like nothing really
Yeah. That's
mandatory.
not how Final
Um,
that's not how Final Fantasy is. There's not I mean there's kind of there's not really mandatory, and that's more down to the content being you can
yeah.
clear with anything, as long as you have 2 tanks, 2 healers, and 4 DPS, you will be able to clear. It's just a question of how easy it is, right? There's
Yeah.
certainly comps that are easier than others, and there are certain things like you could technically do, quad mechanist. You don't.
No one does that. Yeah.
No one does
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. But yeah, it's definitely, I mean, it's a cool thought sort of piece that I think Jack put out. I just don't see WoW going through another reduction. I mean, maybe they take a step to 15, but even then, like I think
If they're gonna
20 is
do
a
15,
solid.
just go 10.
Yeah, I mean, I think 20 is a solid number for a mythic grade for like the
I
highest content, and like letting everything else be flex
So
is
this has come up a couple of times on the podcast, right? Like we've talked about this
yeah.
before. Um, and I've done recruitment for my guild for and we've
Yeah.
gone through a lot of stages, and we're finally, basically after years of work, at the point where our roster is really, like this tier, or like actually since the expansion released, we have recruited we've recruited 2 people. We've had a couple more trials that didn't make it pan out,
Mhm.
and that's it.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
as opposed to like after Sanctum in Shadowlands, we like after Castle Now here we probably replaced half our roster.
Wow.
After Sanctum we probably replaced another quarter to half, and then
Yeah.
after Sepulcher, another maybe quarter. But then like season 4 through now has been, well, season 4 had some people burn out and quit, but
Yeah.
on the whole, like our roster's finally gotten to the point that it's pretty stable, and I'm very happy with that. And it would really suck for Blizzard to like be like 11.0 is 10-person rating and
Yeah.
have to disrupt that. But at the same time, I can completely empathize with people who are like maintaining 10 or 20 player rosters is really hard.
Yeah.
It is a lot of work.
Yeah, it doesn't get easier. And then like yeah, you end up in like a situation with my guild where like we maintain like 25, 26 people on roster, but we still had
Sometimes,
to bring it in
yeah,
halt for like a spot just to raid 20 man because of like
yeah,
overlap of vacations and like just other extenuating circumstances. So yeah, I mean recruitment's the worst part of this game, I think, but I think it's funny. Recruitment always seems to get easier when the game is better. I'll say.
yes, yeah. And that's the other thing, like, right, like some of the people we replaced in Shadowlands, it wasn't because we were kicking them for being bad or whatever. It was because
Yeah.
they were quitting the game.
Yeah, and that's to be honestly, that is the majority of times we replace people, even in my guild. It's like it's not
Yeah,
that like we lose like maybe one person an entire expansion or 2 people an entire expansion, like poor play, where it's just like, dude, you're just not working out. Like it's your attitude's bad, or like the way like you play is bad. Versus like the majority of people that we replace are like, I just don't want to play this game anymore. Like I'm just over it. I want to go outside and do other things. So you know, it's definitely, yeah, roster boss sucks. So I mean, I don't want to see 10-man raids. As cool as it would be to go back and like, you know, the MOP days, I think when I played with that group where some of my, I mean, those are still guys I talk to today outside of WoW. None of them play anymore, which is funny, but I still talk to a lot of them outside of WoW. But yeah, I think I don't know, it sort of waters down encounters too much. Like I think that's the biggest problem.
I
So
think counterpoint to that is actually the new mega dungeon. Like we were commenting how some of these bosses feel like raid bosses, and it's clear from that I think that they could capture some of the things that make an encounter like Sarkareth or Rashok, fun. That then they could scale that down to a smaller group size. Um,
that's true.
I do think that you have a very good point though in terms of like the current class design. They would need to go back to something closer to like Cataclysm, or in Mop Hunter was like your fill buff, flex buff. They could bring any one buff, but only one buff.
Yeah.
And or they could bring a battle res. They was like they could bring a buff, or they could bring lust, or they could bring battle res.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
things like that.
Yeah, because then you get like DK. Like even if you think about like like I wouldn't even think about the major buffs, but like utility spells like DK grips, like
DK grip is still a problem.
Yeah, well you'd have to give it to another class. It might not feel right, you know. So
Give it to priests.
particularly, yeah, I guess it's like reverse life grip. Yeah. So, but I mean, I know it's interesting. I don't see them ever. I don't see them making a change right now.
Yeah.
I think there'd be larger scale changes in the game. Like it's definitely an expansion sort of topic, but
Yeah.
even then, I think it's like, and maybe not this next expansion, maybe the one after it, where they're like, okay, industry has changed again. Lower group sizes are what's in, you know, even for MMOs. So like, let's, you know,
I mean,
go down to 10.
lower group sizes are already what's in for MMOs, right? Like,
Yeah, I mean, I think WoW just has that.
WoW's got the
I don't know.
history.
Yeah, it's like, and it's like people like probably like you and I that have like, hey, we only know 20-man rating in like, you know, in WoW. So it's like, or we only know like a larger raid size versus,
Yeah.
you know.
And I mean, like, so my guild has 2 raid teams, right? If they came out, and said 10.2, 10-person rating, it would probably end up being that we would have 4 raid teams.
Yeah.
And yet, even though it would probably all work out fine, it would still be really awkward. Really awkward and difficult to sort out who's going where, who's doing what, who's managing the new teams, because we don't have like new people would need to manage the new teams and all this stuff. Like it would just be a huge amount of churn for
Yeah.
like I would say that there is good reason to want it, but also
Yeah. I mean,
it would be very disruptive.
yeah, and I think all Jack's points, like in his video, makes sense. Like I literally would agree with all of them. I just think in general for the game, I wouldn't agree with the the highest level difficulty being 10-man, just because of, yeah, I don't know. I don't see it working in the way the game's currently set up. But Blizzard could change that, and we might get
Yeah.
10-man raids and announced at BlizzCon. So
I will say all this stuff is all this talking about the old dungeons, the new dungeon, and lower group size rating has kind of made me look forward to a hypothetical season 4 of all mega dungeons again.
I would agree, actually. Yeah,
Yeah,
like if they like maybe not with the affixes, maybe don't do that. But like I think a season 4 will be fun this time. Yeah.
So yeah,
Cool.
but yeah, I think that is going to be it for our show today. Thank you all for watching and or listening. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did enjoy it and you want to support the show and the other work that we do over on the Peak of Serenity, you can do that at our Patreon at patreon.com/Peak of Serenity. And of course, come and join the Discord. It is the best place to come and shitpost about spinning crane kick nerfs.
Yeah.
Or find out the actual impact of the Windwalker buffs. Something productive.
Exactly.
But that is going to be it for the show today. Thank you all for listening, and we will see you next week.
Bye.